What does society see when it looks at a man who lives alone? It sees a void, a failure to connect, a life half-lived. It projects its own fears of solitude onto him, labeling him as lonely, strange, or incomplete. But what if what they're seeing isn't a void at all? What if they're witnessing a level of psychological sovereignty so profound, so self-contained, that it defies their understanding of the world? What if the man who walks his path without a woman by his side isn't lacking anything, but has instead mastered something? This is the reality we explore today, not through the lens of social trends or hollow dating advice, but through the deep, penetrating wisdom of one of the greatest minds to ever chart the human psyche, Carl Jung. Welcome to the Sigma Male community, the place for men who choose to build their reality from the inside out. Today, we dissect the truth about the Sigma male who lives alone, revealing the powerful psychological architecture that makes him not just independent, but truly sovereign. 1. The libido paradox. Desire without desperation. The modern world has chained the average man to his most primal impulses, convincing him that his life force, his very energy, must be perpetually aimed outward in a desperate search for validation and pleasure. This is what Carl Jung identified as the raw power of the libido, not merely sexual desire, but the total psychic energy that animates a human being. For most, this energy is an untamed beast, dragging them through an endless cycle of swiping, chasing, and seeking, always believing the next encounter will finally fill the emptiness within. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, the dark, unconscious part of our personality, perfectly describes this state. The unexamined man is a puppet of his shadow's desires, his libido hijacked by repressed needs he refuses to confront. He doesn't control his energy, it controls him, making him predictable, programmable, and ultimately weak. The Sigma male, in stark contrast, sees this paradox for what it is, a trap disguised as freedom. He understands that to master his life, he must first master the energy that fuels it. This isn't about suppression or ascetic denial, a common misinterpretation of strength. Instead, it is about integration and conscious direction. He turns his gaze inward, confronting the very shadow that others flee from. He asks himself, what does this desire truly want? What is the deeper hunger beneath the surface-level impulse? By engaging with his libido on a psychological level, he transforms it from a master into a tool. His energy is no longer squandered on fleeting external targets, but is redirected inward, fueling his purpose, his discipline, and his growth. He acknowledges desire. He understands its power, but he refuses to become its slave. He lives by a stoic-like principle of rational self-governance, where his internal state is not dictated by external temptations. This is why his calm is so unsettling to others. It is the calm of a man who has won the war within himself, and therefore cannot be conquered from the outside. 2. The alchemy of solitude. Turning loneliness into leverage, society has weaponized loneliness, turning it into the ultimate punishment for nonconformity. From a young age, we are saturated with messages from what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, the shared, inherited psychic structures that shape our deepest beliefs. This collective programming dictates that being alone is synonymous with being unwanted, a sign of social failure. It whispers that a man's value is reflected in the company he keeps, particularly the presence of a romantic partner. This fear of isolation drives herd behavior, compelling men to cling to shallow relationships and noisy distractions, anything to avoid the deafening silence of their own company. They fear that in that silence, they will find nothing but an empty, echoing chamber, confirming their worst fears about themselves. The Sigma male hears this collective whisper and recognizes it as the siren song of mediocrity. He consciously chooses to unplug from this collective fear. His solitude is not a passive state of being, but an active, strategic decision. It is his forge, his laboratory, the sacred space where the alchemical process of what Carl Jung termed individuation takes place. Individuation is the journey of becoming your true, whole self, differentiating your own consciousness from the collective soup of societal expectations. In the crucible of solitude, the Sigma male smelts away the impurities of social conditioning, the need for external validation, and the fear of being misunderstood. He learns to provide for himself the security, approval, and meaning that others desperately seek from the outside world. This process requires immense fortitude, a resilience that is stoic in its nature as he faces his own shadow without flinching. His solitude is not emptiness. It is a space filled with focused work, deep thought, and the forging of an unshakable internal foundation. He doesn't just endure loneliness, he leverages it into an impenetrable source of strength. 3. Wholeness is an inside job. The great romantic myth sold to the masses is the idea of the other half, the belief that you are an incomplete puzzle piece, and your salvation lies in finding the one person who fits your jagged edges. Carl Jung identified this phenomenon with devastating accuracy in his concept of the anima projection. The anima is the unconscious feminine archetype within a man's psyche. In an unintegrated man, this inner figure remains dormant and undeveloped. He therefore projects its qualities, his own latent capacity for relatedness, nurturing, intuition, and creativity, onto an external woman. He falls in love not with the woman herself, but with the reflection of his own missing soul. This creates a desperate dependency, a relationship built not on genuine connection, but on the neurotic need for the other person to carry the parts of himself he has failed to develop. This is the source of immense suffering, as no external person can ever permanently bear the weight of another's unlived life. The Sigma male instinctively understands the fallacy of this approach. He intuits that seeking wholeness in another is a fool's errand. His journey, especially in periods of living alone, is one of withdrawing those anima projections. He turns inward to consciously integrate these feminine qualities into his own being. He learns to cultivate his own empathy, to trust his own intuition, to find meaning within his own soul. This is not about becoming effeminate. It is about becoming whole. By doing this deeply challenging psychological work, he dissolves the neediness that plagues the average man. He no longer looks for a woman to complete him because he is actively engaged in the process of completing himself. Should he choose to enter a relationship, it is from a position of sovereign wholeness. He connects with a woman not as a missing half, but as a fellow whole individual, creating a bond based on choice and mutual respect, not desperate codependency. 4th, architect of destiny, systems over scaffolding. Observe the lives of most men, and you will find they are built on temporary scaffolding. Their motivation is propped up by fleeting inspiration. Their confidence rests on the shaky ground of external approval, and their direction is often dictated by the influence of a partner or the demands of a boss. Their existence is reactive, a structure that can collapse with the slightest shift in external circumstances. The Sigma male rejects this precarious way of living. He is not a builder who relies on temporary supports. He is the architect of his own existence. He embodies the core principle of Carl Jung's life's work, the process of individuation. He understands that a truly robust life cannot be borrowed or improvised. It must be meticulously designed and engineered from a deep internal blueprint. This blueprint is his purpose, his values, his non-negotiable principles. This act of creation is not about rigid, unthinking routine. It is about the conscious construction of systems that support his ultimate vision. His discipline is the steel framework of his life, His daily habits are the load-bearing walls, and his rational, stoic-like mindset is the foundation that can withstand any storm. While others are buffeted by the winds of emotional turmoil and external opinion, he remains steadfast because the integrity of his structure is self-contained. He doesn't need a partner to motivate him to go to the gym because his health is part of his own system for peak performance. He doesn't need a boss to tell him to keep learning because his growth is a non-negotiable part of his internal blueprint. He lives alone not because he can't fit into society's structures, but because he is too busy building his own, far superior one. His life is a testament to the power of a man who trusts his own design over any prefabricated model society tries to sell him. Number 5. The Integrity Ultimatum. When love costs too much. For many men, a relationship becomes a process of slow, incremental self-betrayal. They sand down their edges, silence their own inner voice, and abandon their personal mission to accommodate a partner's expectations or to maintain a fragile peace. They trade their soul for security. Carl Jung's work on the shadow teaches us that everything we repress, deny, or betray within ourselves does not disappear. It festers in the unconscious, gaining power until it erupts in destructive ways. A man who betrays his own core principles to keep a relationship alive is poisoning his own psyche. He is choosing a slow spiritual death over the temporary pain of asserting his own truth. The relationship may look successful on the outside, but inside, he is becoming a ghost, a hollowed-out version of the man he was meant to be. The Sigma male operates under an integrity ultimatum. His self-respect is not a commodity to be traded. He understands that a relationship should be a force multiplier for his purpose, not a tax on his peace or a drain on his mission. He observes potential partners with a stoic's rational eye, assessing not just for chemistry and attraction, but for alignment in values and respect for his autonomy. The moment a relationship demands he shrink himself, abandon his goals, or violate his own moral code, he recognizes it as a fatal misalignment. He will walk away, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of a fierce, unwavering commitment to his own soul. He knows that the only thing worse than being alone is being with someone who makes you feel alone with yourself. This decision isn't cold. It's the ultimate act of clarity and self-preservation, ensuring that the life he builds remains authentically his. Number 6. The Integrity Ultimatum. When love costs too much. For many men, a relationship becomes a process of slow, incremental self-betrayal. They sand down their edges, silence their own inner voice, and abandon their personal mission to accommodate a partner's expectations or to maintain a fragile peace. They trade their soul for security. Carl Jung's work on the shadow teaches us that everything we repress, deny, or betray within ourselves does not disappear. It festers in the unconscious, gaining power until it erupts in destructive ways. A man who betrays his own core principles to keep a relationship alive is poisoning his own psyche. He is choosing a slow spiritual death over the temporary pain of asserting his own truth. The relationship may look successful on the outside, but inside, he is becoming a ghost, a hollowed-out version of the man he was meant to be. The Sigma male operates under an integrity ultimatum. His self-respect is not a commodity to be traded. He understands that a relationship should be a force multiplier for his purpose, not a tax on his peace or a drain on his mission. He observes potential partners with a stoic's rational eye, assessing not just for chemistry and attraction, but for alignment in values and respect for his autonomy. The moment a relationship demands he shrink himself, abandon his goals, or violate his own moral code, he recognizes it as a fatal misalignment. He will walk away, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of a fierce, unwavering commitment to his own soul. He knows that the only thing worse than being alone is being with someone who makes you feel alone with yourself. This decision isn't cold. It's the ultimate act of clarity and self-preservation, ensuring that the life he builds remains authentically his. 7. Masculinity beyond performance. Much of what passes for masculinity in the modern world is a desperate performance. It's loud, it's brittle, it's posturing. It's the peacock fanning its feathers, the gorilla beating its chest. Actions designed to broadcast strength because deep down, the individual is unsure if he truly possesses it. Carl Jung explored this phenomenon through his concept of the persona. The persona is the social mask we wear, the version of ourselves we present to the world to be accepted and liked. For many men, their masculine persona is a carefully constructed facade of bravado, aggression, and dominance, all designed to hide a trembling insecurity. They need the world to react to their performance, to applaud their strength, to fear their anger. Their sense of self is entirely dependent on this external feedback loop. The Sigma male has moved beyond this performative stage. Through his journey of solitude and introspection, he has done the work of distinguishing his true self from his social mask. He has no need to wear the costume of masculinity because he has cultivated its essence within. His strength isn't loud. It's a quiet gravitational force. His confidence is not projected. It is simply present, an ambient quality of his being. He doesn't need to roar to prove he is a lion. This silent, integrated strength is profoundly unnerving to those who rely on the theater of the persona. They don't know how to categorize him. He is not aggressive, yet he is powerful. He is not loud, yet his presence is felt. He is the living embodiment of true mastery. That which is real no longer needs to be advertised. 8. The Coupledom Conspiracy. Walk through any social landscape, and you will see the altar at which modern society worships, the couple. Being part of a pair is presented as the default state of successful adulthood, the primary marker of maturity and normalcy. This relentless social pressure creates what Carl Jung might call a collective shadow projection, where the societal fear of individuality and nonconformity is projected onto the single person, labeling them as deficient. The institution of coupledom becomes a form of dogma, a pre-packaged answer to the complex questions of human existence. Men and women rush into relationships, not necessarily out of deep connection, but out of a fear of being left out of this grand social ritual. They choose partnership to fulfill a societal expectation, not a personal truth. The Sigma male is a heretic in this church of coupledom. He has the psychological clarity to see the conspiracy for what it is, a system designed to encourage conformity and predictability over individual sovereignty. His allegiance is not to social tradition, but to personal alignment. For him, the measure of a successful life is not whether he is married or partnered. It is whether he is living in congruence with his deepest purpose. He understands that a lie shared with another person is infinitely more toxic than a truth faced alone. Therefore, he rejects the pressure to pair up for the sake of appearances. He would rather dine in solitude with his integrity than feast at a banquet of comforting illusions. This isn't a rejection of love or partnership, but a profound rejection of the idea that it is a mandatory component of a worthy life. Number 9. The Power of Irrelevance. In the social economy of the average man, the currency is utility. He strives to be needed. His value is tied to his function. The provider, the protector, the rescuer, the problem solver. He seeks out situations and often partners where he can feel indispensable because this need from others validates his existence and props up his ego. He wants to be the hero in someone else's story because he hasn't yet learned how to be the protagonist in his own. This desire to be needed is a subtle form of bondage, making his self-worth dependent on the problems and dependencies of others. He is powerful only insofar as others are weak. The Sigma male fundamentally rejects this economy of need. He cultivates a power that Carl Jung would associate with true self-sufficiency, a state of being where his value is intrinsic, not derived from his utility to others. He is not seeking to be someone's hero or savior. His purpose is his own, not a role assigned to him by another's crisis. This makes him, in a social sense, powerfully irrelevant. He cannot be manipulated by pleas for rescue or baited by damsels in distress, because he is not seeking that kind of validation. This isn't isolationism, it's invincibility. When you do not need to be needed, you cannot be emotionally blackmailed. Your peace cannot be held hostage. Your path cannot be diverted. This power of irrelevance is terrifying to a world built on codependent transactions, making the Sigma male an untouchable figure who plays by a completely different set of rules. 10. Archetype Alchemy. Playing the game without being played. The human psyche, as mapped by Carl Jung, is structured around powerful universal patterns known as archetypes: the hero, the sage, the lover, the king, the magician. Most men are unconscious puppets of these archetypes. They get trapped in a single role. They are always the nice guy, always the rebel, always the provider, and play it out compulsively, unable to adapt. Their personality becomes a rigid caricature, easily predicted and easily manipulated. They are being played by the archetypal energies within them, rather than consciously wielding them. Their interactions are scripted, their responses automatic. The Sigma male, through his deep self-awareness, becomes an alchemist of these archetypes. He understands that these are not fixed identities, but masks of energy that can be worn and removed as the situation demands. This is not disingenuous manipulation. It is the highest form of social and psychological mastery. He can access the lover's charm to build rapport without becoming lost in attachment. He can embody the king's authority to lead a project without letting it inflate his ego. He can tap into the sage's wisdom to give advice without becoming a preachy guru. He is a psychological shapeshifter who remains anchored to his true self. While others are trapped playing a single character in the game of life, he is like the master player who understands the entire system. He can play any role required, but he never forgets who he is when the game is over. 11th. Precision Solitude. The art of strategic isolation. For the common man, aloneness is a wound, a sign of rejection that he desperately tries to medicate with noise, distraction, and company. For the Sigma male, aloneness is not a wound. It is his whetstone. He doesn't just endure solitude, he employs it with surgical precision. This aligns perfectly with Carl Jung's emphasis on introspection as the primary tool for psychological growth. Jung believed that the most important conversations a person can have are with the figures of their own inner world. The Sigma male takes this to heart. His periods of living alone are not spells of hiding from the world, but strategic retreats for the purpose of sharpening his greatest weapon, his mind. This is not the dull, aching loneliness of the rejected, but the focused, energizing solitude of the strategist. Every hour spent alone is an investment. He is not wasting time. He is compounding his mental capital. While others are diffusing their energy in social drama and trivial pursuits, he is in his sanctuary, refining his skills, clarifying his purpose, and fortifying his emotional resilience. He practices a stoic-like discipline of the mind, analyzing his own thoughts and emotions as objective data, not as overwhelming forces. This strategic isolation is his ultimate leverage. It's why he often seems steps ahead of everyone else, because while they were busy playing the social game, he was studying the board, the players, and most importantly, himself. 12. Beyond codependence. Love on his terms. Let it be unequivocally clear, the Sigma male's path of solitude is not born from a hatred or fear of women. It is born from a profound opposition to dependency in all its forms. He is not against love. He is against the corrupted, need-based version of it that society sells. His journey aligns with the ultimate goal of Carl Jung's psychology: individuation, the state of becoming an indivisible whole person. A man who has achieved, or is deeply committed to, this path of wholeness relates to others from a completely different paradigm. He does not seek a partner to fill a void, heal a wound, or provide a purpose. He has already taken on that sacred responsibility for himself. This is not a rejection of connection. It is a radical evolution of it. Should he choose to enter a relationship, it is an act of creation, not desperation. It is a conscious, deliberate choice made from a position of strength and abundance. He chooses a partner who complements his sovereignty, not one who compromises it. This is, in fact, the highest form of respect he can offer a woman: to see her and engage with her as a fellow whole and sovereign being, not as a tool to fix his own incompleteness. His relationships are not clung to, they are chosen day after day. And this principle, the principle of loving from wholeness instead of hunger, represents the pinnacle of emotional and psychological evolution for any man. The great Carl Jung famously said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." The man society labels and misunderstands, the Sigma male who lives alone, is not lost in a dream of what someone else can give him. He is profoundly and sometimes painfully awake. He has chosen the arduous path of looking inward, of wrestling with his own psyche, of building his own soul from the ground up. The world will likely never understand his choices, his comfort with silence, his immunity to their social pressures. And that is his greatest power. He doesn't need their understanding, only his own. He is not a character in society's story. He is the author of his own. If this resonated with you, it's because you recognize the truth in this path. You feel the pull towards psychological sovereignty. Here at the Sigma Male community, we don't offer easy answers or quick fixes. We are a resource for the difficult, essential work of self-mastery. Reflect on these principles. Apply them not just as ideas, but as a framework for your life. Subscribe and continue this journey with us, because the path of the awakened man is a solitary one. But we don't have to walk it in ignorance. Build your own world. The architect is you.